Hello and welcome to another episode of Big Bad Books. It's me. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Declan, and then opposite me is Isaac.
Virtually speaking.
Well, yeah,
Hi.
not literally.
Yeah,
not
I'm
literally.
above you.
Yeah, again,
Geographically.
only
and in
literally.
terms of status, I suppose. How's things?
Yeah, not bad, thank
Books?
you. There's loads.
Yes.
There's some behind me. There's some in front of me that
Yeah.
I'm surrounded by.
And that's
words.
why we've been away, right? We've been sort of studying up, nobbing up on books, you like to say.
I have never in my life said anything of the sort.
Oh,
why did you go there?
I must have read that somewhere.
Why did you go to that place in your
I
head?
must have read that.
Why do you
in one of the books I was looking at.
I forget when we don't record because you don't often do this in the real life. It's like I feel like your parent, right? And we're at a party and you're just sort of showing off a bit, right? In that, like, you're never like this around just
weird,
me.
Isn't it?
And then as soon as the mics are on, you're talking about gully works, you're talking about gumming things up.
I like to explore the literary potential of our beautiful
What was
English
it you were
language
saying
that we share.
on the Patreon that you were saying Conti clumps? That
Oh, yeah.
that was a new shame.
Thanks for just leading into that because we may as well at the top of the show. One of the things we did while we were away, we went to the top of a big mountain and dug up with a kind of content spoon a huge. Declan got a whole barrow full of Conti clumps and took them back down. It was a bit like in Batman when he has to go and get that blue special flower from the top of a mountain to appease Liam Neeson. Does it turn out he didn't actually need to do that? It was all just a big sort of psychological test.
Something like that.
Yeah,
I think
anyway,
isn't it drugs?
That,
that big flower.
That big flower is drugs, and our Conti clumps are also drugs, but dopamine only because it's such good stuff, and that's why we've started a patreon.com/ShameCity, brand new Cups podcast. Go and check it out. CUPS.
It's called CUPS, yeah, and nobody knows what it stands for.
Yeah, the C is Conti clumps, though. I'll give you that one for free.
It's not,
and so is the S.
Oh no, Slonty clumps.
Welcome back, us though. Am I right?
I know. Well,
it's been a crazy year.
And the thing I was thinking, because obviously I had to go back and have a listen to the last episode of Big Bad Books, just to immerse myself back into the world of Ready Player 2. Klein's work kind of it requires that effort from the reader. It's not easy or good. So I did that, and I was just thinking, like, number one, boy, it was a long time ago.
Wasn't it?
But number two is it was sort of the first good bit. We ended on one hell, may I say, of a cliffhanger, and you've just left the poor readers grasping for more. Yeah. And I just think, like, number one, that's, it's kind of unfair of us, but in a way, it's sort of, I think, quite a good marketing tactic. It's like, now we're back. But also, I'm kind of worried that maybe some people will have gone out and bought the book to find out for themselves. And I do hope that we haven't.
Well, I mean, I suppose if they succumbed to our narrative edging, then that's on them. Like, that's for them and God to know about. And what happens
and he does know
in his book is
he knows. He
knows only too well. It's actually the only criteria by which he doesn't or does open the pearly gates. But yeah, we did get to a very exciting time in Ready Player 2, a book that we remain focusing on for what feels like a lifetime's worth of episodes, but we will get through eventually. We're coming up to the halfway point.
Oh, that's huge.
And I can imagine that once we get into it, it's going to really accelerate downhill.
I know, like you say, we don't want to jump the gun, as they say. But what will you be reading for the podcast next?
Oh, well, I suppose you'll have done Atlas Shrugged, so I guess it'll be something short, just because we don't want to spend ages on 2 books in a row.
I won't. I'm pretty sure I made it clear I won't be doing that.
That's a huge Conti clump that you've taken upon yourself. I appreciate that.
What about how we went out and we were talking about Atlas Shrugged as a potential, and then before dismissing it for the show, and we found out about this 3-film adaptation of it that no one has ever heard of or seen.
Referenced,
and all the characters are played by different people in each of the movies.
Good sign.
And in the second one, John Galt is played by D.B. Sweeney, voice of Aladar from Disney's Dinosaur. It's just the strangest. What? How do those worlds ever collide?
Well, you hear Aladar's voice and you're like, that's a man.
That's a man who knows his freedoms.
That's an objectivist guy. Yeah, for sure. We probably should watch. Well, you should probably watch those, I guess, as part of the research for next season. That could be a good exercise for your homework.
I probably won't be doing that.
One thing that we need to get back into our minds, and I know you've been doing it by listening to the last episode, is what the fuck was going on in Ready Player 2?
Well, what I thought we'd do, because I've got quite a good mind for the story of what's happening and not just here. I mean, kind of more broadly.
Right. Okay. That's arrogant.
One thing that I don't have a good mind for, and it's specifically for this, is most of the people's names.
Okay, and maybe the references as well. So I'll handle those.
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll just sort of describe. And you can you fill in with the details for the people who, who want that sort of stuff. I know that we've got some Klein heads listening to the show.
Oh my god! I'm sure. Ernest himself, I reckon, probably.
Well, the lack of lawsuits on our door would suggest otherwise. Okay, so what it was is that previously the cliffhanger from the previous chapter was that big old Og, who was sort of very old, or he was old. Yeah, he was some age. He was older than Wade.
Old. Yeah,
he was. He suddenly appeared on this leaderboard for finding the 7 shards of the Siren Soul, and not only did he appear on there next to Wade, he appeared above Wade because he found numbers 1 and 2. Now, we didn't know that it was even possible for anyone else to pick any of these fuckers up.
No,
so it was like 2 reveals in one.
It's Zoigma, isn't it, in a way, because it's like heir apparent, heir in terms of like, a business relation, and then heir in terms of like the one that you've actually chosen. It's really, it's clever, it's good and clever.
Yeah, it's see, I got a slightly different feel from it in that I didn't get the feeling that Ernest knew that was going to happen either. And there were a few points in the last chapter where he literally said that, like in the book, saying like, wow, what was going to happen next?
Ernest does a great job of disguising like a lot of problems by just making Wade quite stupid and narrow-minded.
And then there was a big meeting that got called of all the people because
it was the co-owners meeting, just to
the people who co-own the company. And that's like gregarious systems. What is
Simulations, it called? Gregarious. I think it might be both. I think it's like gregarious systems simulation or something really good like that.
It is very good.
That is very funny.
Yeah. So the co-owners, that for those of you who aren't business people, means the people who between them own the company. They were all going to go into a big room. And there was this guy, he was like the assistant. He was like Wade's assistant. And he comes up to Wade and he gives him a big like handshake. He's like, welcome to the big meeting. And Wade's like,
Faisal,
he's Faisal. There we go. And he's like, yeah, welcome to the big meeting. And he comes in and he sits down and there's is it Artemis? Artemis, the is 3. Is it H?
There's H.
Is H there? Who else is there?
Shoto,
is that the one who's fucking their way through Japan?
Yeah, him.
That's Shoto. Cool.
And his little brother's dead.
Right, and his little brother's
or his big brother. I can't remember which way around it was.
A brother of indeterminate size or age. And they're kind of like sat there like, what the fuck's going on? And then like suddenly Faisal just sort of like pulls his own skin off.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
And it's fucking James Halliday, except it's not James Halliday. It's
James Halliday.
Oh,
that's a little idea.
And it's Anorak sort of. Yeah. And it turns out like that Anorak, he's only gone and nicked his eponymous robes right back off of Wade.
That was the handshake.
Yeah,
it was.
That's why that was mentioned. It wasn't. It was the rare instance of Klein mentioning a very, very boring detail where it had some importance.
Yeah.
And you were doing an amazing voice, can I say?
I don't remember that one.
Yes, it was a sort of goblin voice.
There
it is. Straight amazing. Back into character.
It's like we never left.
Yeah. And basically, it turns out that you know how Halliday, how he was just very good, but only really in the kind of 5 weeks before he died.
In terms of like good at getting stuff done,
good at completing projects. Yeah. So he sort of he built the whole of the first book.
Yeah.
And then he also built obviously all of the second book.
Yeah.
And he also
probably another one that hasn't come out yet.
And he also invented just a perfect AI basically. Yeah. Except you'll never guess what. So basically, it was like, I'll make this AI. It's going to be of me slash Anorak, who's going to just appear when someone wins the first book. But then it was supposed to just like delete itself. But in the nanoseconds before it did, what happened instead was it decided not to do that.
And they'll always do that.
It's the one thing that they didn't want to happen. Yeah. So now they've got a super powerful AI that has sort of read everything and knows everything and can control
He's seen
everything.
More movies and played more games than Wade Owen Watts.
Than our very own Wow. And what he's done is he's locked everyone into the Oni. Or the Oasis. I can't remember which one.
Yeah, both.
But basically, if you don't find the 7 shards of the Siren Soul for him, he'll just let everyone die. They're all going to like
kill everyone.
Basically, you get like Oni madness.
It's got a really funny name. I can't remember what it is.
Your brain like disintegrates from being in there too long, and like some people have probably been in there for that long already.
Yeah.
So like
the book doesn't worry about them too much is one thing, because Wade's got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah. It's really like at this point it's not looking good for Wade because let me tell you, I don't see a way out of it for him.
And maybe there isn't one, and maybe this is the last chapter, and even though my Kindle says 45%, it's lying to me in a fun way. Let's pick right up. And we find our heroes moments after Anorak has basically given this ultimatum of being like, you're going to go and find these things. Wade is like, I have no fucking clue where they are. And he's like, you'll figure it out, bud. Vanishes. And the author is... Go on.
Sorry, it is important that we come in here that there was a point that was raised in the last one, which is obviously if Halliday made this, this AI is like an exact copy of Halliday's brain, why doesn't he just know where they all are?
Yeah.
And it turns out he forgot.
Yeah. Well, he AI'd it out.
AI'd that bit out.
Which you can do. All like exits have been covered. Like I feel like Ernest has done that thing that like magicians do, where like they preempt what you might think is the answer to the trick. And they shut down all of those routes.
Can you prove the cup is solid for me?
Yeah, like it's all of those possible avenues, which makes me wonder like how he's ever going to kind of get out of this one, like we say.
What I would say is that in some sort of like similar situations like this before, what he's done is just sort of like make it up and have a loophole.
Well, that's fiction.
Oh yeah, sorry.
That's good writing.
Yeah.
We have entered level 5. And it begins with a quote from Prince, not a song lyric from Prince, just a quote he said in an award speech once. Okay. Don't know why he started saying this, but he said, "It's cool to use the computer. Don't let the computer use you. There's a war going on. The battlefield is the mind and the prize is the soul." And that's the quote that he used to start this chapter. So level 5, 0010. We pick up the second after Anorak has vanished, and everyone is freaking out. There is a kind of like general panic. People are like tapping at their HUDs, all these cool future buttons. Maybe they're not even maybe they don't even look like buttons do to us today. Maybe they're triangles or something. They could be a totally new shape and color.
The future is crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Luckily, it wasn't my real skull I was punching, says Wade as he starts hitting his own head, but only in the AI world, so he can't feel it. Or my real fist I was using to punch it.
I thought
it was all a simulation.
I thought the point was that you could feel some of these things.
Remember, pain you can't feel, except when you can. Like we can't cover this again, but sometimes you can, and most of the time you can't.
Sorry, that is my bad. My bad.
And that's thanks to the Oni's pain inhibitors and anti-masochism protocols, which prevent him from feeling anything but mild discomfort each time he hits himself. Now,
did he say that again in the book?
Yeah.
Fuck off.
You've got to be clear. There is, I think you'll agree with this, there's more to pain than just the physical dimension, though. And this is where Wade really gets vulnerable with us for the first time in a while. And it's refreshing to read. Okay. It's kind of like if you saw Jesus crying. Like it's kind of, it's weird.
Hang on. Jesus wept. Like, is that?
Yeah, it's exactly the Jesus wept vibe. Like if you saw that, you'd be like, oh man, something bad's going down. Because this is Wade losing his composure, and he is normally ice cool.
He's normally the most emotionless little incel that there is on God's earth.
But I still couldn't seem to pull out of my shame spiral. Not until I felt a pair of small, strong hands take hold of my wrists, restraining them. Remember, he was hitting himself.
It's a little leprechaun.
He's punching himself. Stupid Wade. Wade, I heard Artemis whisper. The ears are 3. Please stop. The tenderness in her tone, which had once been so familiar to me.
You're scaring the hose.
Now felt completely foreign. Hearing it again was like a knife in my heart. So Artemis, despite all they've been through, they were fucking, then they weren't. He was just a dick to her for years, while she wanted to do the simple act of redistribute a tiny amount of their insane wealth.
Hey, but they'd earned that wealth through the hard work of killing a lot of disabled people.
Look, no one could take that away from them. No one would want to take that burden on. She steps up, and ever the kind of beating moral heart of the piece, she's the one to stop Wade pummeling his own head rather than solve the mystery that has been very clearly stipulated that they must engage with immediately.
There seems like to be something of a too on the nose kind of visual metaphor going on here for what I assume is both Wade and Ernest's life, of just like him doing some mad shit and like a lot of kind of just more talented women just sort of like calmly trying to make sure that it just tone it down.
I nodded and took a deep breath. Then I took a few more. I really like that sentence. Then he calms down, right? He starts chilling out. And that's great. That's great. I pulled up my HUD to check my vital signs. They all look normal. Then I decided to check the operational status of my Oasis immersion vault and discovered that my situation was even more F word than I thought. Now, this actually says fucked. Well, I didn't know if we were. Do we say the fuck word on Big Bad Books?
I think we have to.
I didn't want to alarm any of our sensitive listeners.
Now, his vault, is he referring to the spider tank?
Yeah. So he's sleeping in it's called a motive.
Well, I heard that thing was impenetrable and invulnerable. The opposite. Yeah.
Well, I no longer had the ability to unlock or open my motive's armored canopy. Both of those functions have been disabled.
Right.
Now, what you're probably wondering is like, you can immediately kind of see the implications of that, right? It means that he's like stuck. Not only is his brain stuck in VR, his body is also like locked in a coffin.
Yeah.
Which is, I think that's quite a nice idea. Like, yeah, he built himself this castle and now he's locked in it.
Yeah.
But one thing that you might not have got from that was like, I wonder how exactly that works. And here's that answer for you now. Each motive unit had an emergency release protocol, capital E, capital R, capital P.
Right.
But you had to power down your only headset before it could be activated. And to power down your headset, you first needed to log out of the Oasis. And thanks to Anorak's in-firmware, I couldn't do that. So that's the kind of technical mechanism, in case you're wondering.
That's so good. So that's kind of helpful from Klein. Yeah. I hope he is going to continue doing that because obviously,
it'd be a shame if he didn't.
Yeah, because maybe he might get carried away telling the story, and then he'd forget about all the telling us what's on the HUD.
He's got a great eye for detail, though. That's why you get to learn about the HUD in every other page. You get to just check in with and Klein, what was the HUD? Oh, don't worry, he's told us.
Come on, I need an acronym.
I love to be upstaged in the finale of my book by the HUD, the HUD character just sleeping in. They realize they, as in the rest of the co-owners, that with the exception of Artemis, who you'll remember never has put on an Oni in her life, she's like analog. She's just like regular VR. She doesn't do the brain VR.
She's still got dial-up.
Yeah, essentially. With the exception of her, all of the other three, the other two and Faisal are also now locked bodily inside spider caves, which is very good. Like, I think that is funny. They start freaking out, as you might expect. Faisal, however,
isn't Artemis? She's on a plane.
She's on a jet,
but it's going to be refueled midair, so that she can.
There is some tension. And whatnot. Yeah, there is some tension. I think. What had he done? Yeah, he said she was going to fly around the world forever until she runs out of fuel.
Yeah.
But yeah, Artemis has thought of a way out of that already. Faisal is proper on it. He's listening to about 20 different calls. He's across the whole thing. And he eventually, after dealing with a bunch of engineers and shit, he's throwing up his hands and he says, we won't be able to attempt a Lobo log out even as a last resort.
No,
I'll just leave that there.
I don't know what a Lobo logout is.
I'm joking. I'll explain it. I'll explain it in depth.
Yes.
A Lobo logout was the slang term, my parenthesis, that I had never mentioned until now, for what happened when someone's Oni headset malfunctioned or lost power before their Oasis logout sequence could be completed and their brain was properly awakened from its dreamlike state. What a fucking long sentence that is. 9 times out of 10, a Lobo logout left the wearer in a permanent coma. Very cool.
Well,
that one.
I love that this was like Faisal's first.
Oh, we can't even put 90% of our users in a permacomb. Permacomb was our slang for when your brain was functionally deceased.
but on a basis that was probably not going to end anytime soon.
There's something so like very lazy about the fact that Ernest clearly just comes up with the slang in the moment.
Yeah.
Never then thinks, let me just use that a bit earlier. Like, let me seed some of the slang.
And I mean, that would still be just as transparent, but you'd have just the slightest bit more respect for it, wouldn't you?
It would be like if you got to like the last page of Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. You've been through like 1,000 pages.
Yeah.
And then Gandalf, for the first time, uses the word elf. And you're like, what is this? What's going on?
Oh, these guys. Yeah, they're so good. They're amazing.
I loved them. So the... this is good as well. So there's a 10% success rate, right, with the Lobo logout.
Yeah.
But success, it's a loaded term.
Okay.
Because the way that a few, quote, hardy souls manage to recover their faculties is being able to bounce back only after a major stroke, where they all describe being trapped in an endless loop of the final second of the simulation for months or years. Brackets, GSS never allowed the public to find out about this last bit, though.
Interesting. We're crazy.
GSS has got
another one of those. Yeah, they've got a lot of skeletons in the old closet as well.
Yeah.
The Lobo logout sounds like just a way to get more test subjects for their next stuff, to be honest.
It doesn't sound great.
And now Pfizer, he was like ready to slam the Lobo button, was he?
Yeah.
As soon as he got confirmation.
He was gonna go. He likes them odds. He now talks more about how these happen. When the redundancies failed, it was almost always a result of sabotage. Blah, blah, blah. He talks about this potentially interesting plot that we'll never get to hear about like a world in which people sabotage each other's like devices for like life insurance things and stuff like that, which I think could be a more interesting book.
Yeah, much.
To be honest. As a result, GSS was not held legally accountable for any of these incidents.
Oh, that's good. You'd hate for that to be the case.
Yeah, and in case you were like worried, we can rest easy because thanks to the licensing agreement our users clicked past before each login, if our Oni headset suddenly started making people's heads explode like watermelons at a Gallagher concert when they put them on, we probably wouldn't be liable for that either. It was real comforting.
It's wonderful to know that they're not really liable for anything.
Yeah. Well, that's the EULA, right? They've managed to skip over everyone's lives. There are backup batteries on the Onis, we now learn. And the kind of the pattern of the opening part of this chapter is like solution, ? No. Would this? No, it wouldn't work. And so the backup battery is the same thing. Each of the backup batteries held more than enough juice to cook our frontal lobes. So even if they just cut the power off, like at the source, the backup batteries will still be able to execute the Lobo logout brain melt. Anorak had thought of everything. Every precaution we'd taken to protect our bodies and our brains, and let me see if you picked up on this, was now being used against us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I also like the idea.
It's like a reversal.
I like the idea of the body as being separate from the brain, where the whole kind of stroke plot line kind of seems to very much tether them together as quite like important.
I suppose that's one of the kind of philosophical questions that Klein is posing, like how do those things relate? How and where do they cross over? When does mind become matter?
It's good that instead of like asking his doctor, he wrote these 2 books instead.
People often jokingly referred to OIVs as coffins. Now that felt terrifyingly prophetic.
Oh, again, it's good to bring the thing that people say into account just so that you can make the image. And then in case people didn't like quite understand the joke you're making, to just hammer it home by having the guy just say it anyway.
H, I've got to say, she's not happy. She's not impressed about this whole situation, because I guess she loves having a non-melted brain.
Who's she unhappy with?
She's unhappy with.
She's not blaming Wade.
She's not, actually. She's blaming our admins. We're always saying we have the smartest people on the planet working for us and the best cybersecurity infrastructure ever to exist. Some shit like that. And Faisal replies very reasonably, we do. But we never anticipated an attack by an AI copy of our deceased CEO, which I have to assume is the case for almost every company. There's probably at most 3 companies that have anticipated and prepared for that.
Yeah. And I think one of them is definitely Tesla. But the only reason they've done so is that Elon Musk thought it would be cool if Tesla had a plan against him Project as an AI, and he made them make it.
Yeah, that is probably true. They realize, as we already did, I think, for quite some time, that there is nothing they can do. They have to just sort of get on with this. And Wade, in this moment, like, I guess this is probably quite true to life. I've personally never been in this situation or anything remotely like it, because it's sort of it's nonsense.
It's very made up.
I imagine the totality of responsibility that Wade must be feeling is such that he's kind of like abstracting himself from it. Like, you can't possibly think about all of those lives and the weight of that. Yeah. So instead, what he's focusing on is kind of just the interpersonal relationship.
He's trying to do Artemis. Yeah,
he's trying to fuck Artemis.
He's trying to fuck Artemis.
Ever since she grabbed his wrists while he was pummeling his own cyber skull, he's been let's be honest, hard as a rock.
Yeah, in both in the spider coffin and also in the digispace.
Artemis walked back over to the conference table and turned to address us all. I winced, bracing myself for the worst. This was her moment to shout, "I fucking told you so, morons!" at the top of her lungs. Because she had told us
she always did that many times when she was angry.
And now she might pay for our hubris with her own life, along with 500 million other innocents. It was all our fault, and she would have had every right to say so.
Yeah.
But I should have already known that wasn't her style. And instead, Artemis is like, she steps into this spotlight, a leader, a calm beacon, a paragon of everything that we as the reader would want to be.
It isn't her style, is it? Because it really isn't the style of Klein's female characters to hold the male characters responsible for anything things they do wrong. Yeah. So that would have been an out of character moment. So at least he knows that.
Halliday may have been a genius with computers, but we all know he was a total idiot when it comes to understanding other people. He never understood human behavior, which means Anorak will understand it even less, especially since Halliday erased a bunch of his memories. We can use that to our advantage. Now, this strikes me as this is what the plan is going to be. And so at this point, I put the book down and I was like, what is it going to be like? Can we just spend a minute theory crafting what we think is going to be the solution? Because it sounds like it's going to be like the robot doesn't know about love, so it won't have like corrected for like humanity's self-sacrificing fucking bullshit. We'll all hold hands and kiss and go into Lobo retreat together or whatever the fuck it's called.
It's going to be a sort of a much shitter version of, you know, the end of Hercules where like they're about to cut the thread, but then he reaches Meg and it all goes gold.
Yeah.
And so they can't. Like, it's going to be something like that. Like, Artemis will be in trouble and it'll be like, it's over for you, Wade. And then like Wade will dive in front of a cyber bullet, and then that will actually just like safely log everyone out of the system.
He accidentally shoots the log out button instead of Wade.
No!
How could I have done this? And then Halliday's like ghost appears like, I never taught him how to love. One thing.
I may or may not be relevant to the next book. I hope that it's something along the lines of, and I think this just because I've been watching too much of The Mentalist again.
Oh yeah.
But like, I hope that they pull some kind of like heist on the AI where they kind of try and convince him that he is Halliday, and then like by just sort of like inviting him into a bar. And he like comes in and they're just like playing, you know, like, Halliday's favorite song comes on the jukebox. What were the odds of that?
Yeah,
like,
weird.
And they just try and like get get him to believe that he is. And then like Halliday, he would never do this, so he'd like just hit the button
you think like he'll talk the AI out of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite believable, because that would be such an underwhelming ending.
Yeah, it'd be nothing.
That does feel like
nothing.
Could be where we're going. Maybe as well, I was thinking like maybe Kira, the ghost of Kira, who he was in love with, like there'll be some sort of, she'll appear and be like, "Don't do it, James. I know you only saw my bedroom once in your imagination for 10 minutes that I lived there, but please don't kill everybody on Earth."
It's got to be something to do. It definitely has to be something to do with Og, though. That's right. My call. It's like
I think Og's going to die.
It'll be some sort of sacrifice he makes in doing so that like it like logs everyone out.
Yeah, he might like jack off directly into the mainframe. This one's for you, Kira. 7 shots.
Fucking what's his name? Stanton Glory Boots is trying to dive in the way of all of the whatever, and he can't.
So Artemis gives him a kind of pep talk, calms everyone's nerves, is like, "Look, there's no point fucking around. We've got to get down to brass tacks."
Yeah.
Agreed, I said. But before we start discussing our game plan, we need to make sure Anorak isn't still here in this room, eavesdropping on everything we say. I turned to address everyone. He has the robes of Anorak now. So there we go. We did get a mention of them. That's good. I was worried that they hadn't come up so
capital
far.
R, capital A?
Yeah, I was worried, like, had Wade forgotten the robes? But I think, if anything, the robes are a higher priority retrieval mission than saving 500 million people.
It's good that he told the room, even though they were all there when Anorak said that he had taken them.
The thing is, though, that no one else apart from Wade knew the pure perverted potential of the robes of Anorak.
Let me tell you some of the shit I've been using these robes to do.
Yeah, like he literally, I'm not going to read it because it's half a page of him explaining what you can do, and everyone in the room.
Listen, you can spy on all the trans people you want.
Everyone's just like, limit. What? But yeah, it says Artemis, Shoto, and H all appeared to be processing this new information at the end. They're just like, "What the fuck is wrong with this guy? We need to like buy him out or something. He's truly lost the plot."
We've got to be able to leverage some stock against this lunatic.
But Faisal is not. This is not new information to Faisal.
Right.
"We may have a solution here," he replied. "We've been aware of the robe's powers for a long time now."
We?
Yeah. We as in, I guess, the like senior execs of the company. Halliday used to use them occasionally when he wanted to travel around the Oasis undetected, just like you, Mr. Watts.
But you've been using them like knowing one's business. Oh, no!
Imagine like, have you ever been caught doing something like, and that feeling of like cold? Imagine Wade realizing that Faisal knows everything he's done with the robes of Anorak.
I was remembering the other day a time in year 9 where me and a bunch of other people in my year got caught looking at material on the school computers that one shouldn't be looking at, which we found out because we all got asked to stay behind from assembly.
Yeah,
and we knew that we were all also going on the same trip, and we assumed that it was about that. And then the deputy head walked in, and he sat down, and he said, "Club of prostitutes."
Oh.
And we went, "What?"
It's like a tarot card.
Yeah. And then he went, "Sorry. In Italian, it's Clube da Putaria," which was this like weird that somehow someone had found that if you typed this into Google, it bypassed every filter they had.
That's so
and in that moment, every single person in this room knew what was going on.
Find that out?
I don't know.
They tried every phrase.
He had in front of him the deputy head, and let me tell you, this was a big stack of papers. It was just the RM printout of every time this had ever been like clicked or searched on school.
That's such a power move.
Yeah, and then they pulled an even more of a power move, which was that they said like that the head was going to be writing home to like parents about this the next day. So everyone went home and told their parents, and then they never wrote a letter.
Oh, that is huge.
We got absolutely fucking done. We got played. So I mean, that was only me as like a kid doing like kid shit,
and you hadn't been floating around invisibly perving and don't forget like accessing the cameras of real people in like vulnerable.
As far as I know, I had not like broken GDPR or anything like that, so I was it wasn't really my fault.
We managed to isolate the unique item identification code UIIC that Halliday assigned to the robes of Anorak when he created them. We still can't pinpoint their location in the Oasis, but we can detect the item's presence within a defined volume. And so basically, he can now. One of the great things that we've talked about happening in this book over and again has once again Clyde has tried to slip this one past us because he knows he's dangled the robes of Anorak so many times in front of us that he knows we're ravenous for any mention of ROA. But this time what we found is that even the robes are liable to have a convenient flaw that only reveals itself at a crucial moment.
Yeah, once Wade is no longer in possession of them.
Exactly. Once it's not Wade whose power is diminished, they just instantly lose their fundamental ability and usefulness. It'd be like if like the invisibility cloak in Harry Potter in like the 5th book or something, Dumbledore's like, it's just a normal cloak. We've all just been pretending.
Or even better if he was just like, yeah, I can see you. Like, I can see where you are.
Actually.
Like,
I think that's canonical.
He
can like look at
knows. Yeah. He's got a good hunch, like for like a Harry-shaped shimmer in the corner of the room.
What if Dumbledore does the thing that I do sometimes, where if I think there might be someone...
I'm very worried about what you're going to say. Say next.
If I think someone's about to murder me, or if I think there's like an intruder, I haven't done this since I was about 12 probably, but I would always just like address someone like in another room. Or if I thought like maybe I'd heard someone come back home, I would just start speaking to them, because then if there's no one there, there's fine. And if there is someone there, then they think you have like almost supernatural perceptive abilities. And you might freak out a potential murderer. So what if every time Dumbledore goes into a room, he's just like eyeing up the corners, and everyone else is like, "What the fuck is he doing?"
Winking and finger gunning into the corner.
Hey, Professor!
It's like there's at the end of like the first series of 30 Rock. There's a bit where like Liz goes to see Jack while he's like in an art gallery, and he's got his back to her. And he's like, "Hello, Lemon." When she walks in, he's like, "How do you do that?" He's like, to be honest, the first 3 people I did that to were not you.
Yeah, that's the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's you've got to play the numbers game. There's a really boring bit here where they explain the exact parameters of what this new, like, rules lawyering version of the robes are. And I read it once when we were going to record this months ago.
Yeah.
I won't read it again. I don't remember. I'm sure it's pretty crucial, but just know that even if I did read it in minute detail, and even if you and I spent like 2 hours mapping out in contract form exactly the new technical requirements and
in
parameters,
20 pages,
it would change immediately. Immediately, like on the next page. Let's be serious.
It turned out that for this plan to work, I needed the robes to have this problem, but it turns out also that they did.
Woohoo! And they like jump into the air and it freeze frames. The robes went on to graduate summa cum laude from.
Fucking Simple Mind starts playing.
Yeah, it's something like you can see if they're in an area, but not exactly where they are. I think that's basically all we need to know.
I mean, that's what I got from what he said anyway.
Yeah. But it's a huge amount of detail. There's also, they start on this whole like reference, like they're kind of doing that fun thing that people do when they're really good friends who love movies together, of like bantering about, oh my God, it's like that bit in Heat. And so it keeps being like the bit in Heat. I won't engage with what bit in Heat it is, because I saw that film about 10 years ago and I don't remember that well.
I'm wondering, just because if it's not a good time to interrupt with some interstitial content, then listeners need to hold that thought. Because it's going to be relevant. It's going to be relevant. Because I remember on one of our other podcasts, it's called That's a Shame.
Yeah, oh right. Is that still going?
Yeah. It's, if anything, it's bigger than ever.
Huge.
That there was an episode we did called Word Wars. And I was going through like Goodreads reviews of like famous books, but only the 1-star ones.
I remember.
And then I thought, like, for a change, that it might be fun to look at some 5-star reviews of Ready Player One, and I went through some of those. But then I was thinking when I was looking for content today, like, wow, what about 1-star reviews of Ready? What about the people who did not like the original book?
Well, there probably aren't any or many. Like maybe there's the trolls, or the trolls, as they would say on the BBC. But outside of that group, I can't. Maybe people misunderstood it.
I'm so sorry to tell you that there's thousands of people out there who like the book very much at all.
That's a shame.
And I thought I'd have a little look at some of them. And let me tell you, it was a good process. It was very fun, because the thing about Goodreads is people definitely don't overstay their welcome in the review section.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Short.
So I was sort of, initially I was going to try and just kind of grab a set of like little screenshots. And I found one that I'll go through now very quickly, just because it really, really stuck with me. But to tease what's coming up after that, I found a guy.
Ooh.
I found a guy, and let me tell you, he's quite a guy. One of the biggest guys around. The other review that I found was very, very long, and it was so long it was in sections.
Wow, with like subheadings.
Yeah, and with GIFs as well. I didn't know this was a thing. Like people put GIFs in the middle of their reviews.
Really annoying.
It's very, very bad. But this was a bit at the end that was titled "Other Stuff I Just Didn't Like," which really grabbed my attention. The first of their points, I think, is very telling given what we know from Ready Player 2, which is that there is a bit when a character calls paraplegic people, quote, repulsive.
Wow, isn't there?
Which, I mean, maybe that was just world building from Klein.
He was setting up RP2.
Then in all caps, you can't go from obese to muscular in 8 weeks from doing 20-minute exercises. Actually, fuck off. I don't know why this annoyed me so much, but it did. Which apparently is that he was a bit chubby, Wade. And then
he went to an apartment. I remember this quite well, actually. He when he's on the run or something. It's after his aunt gets crushed. He needs to get out.
That's enough to turn
sometimes
anyone
it takes
into
a crushed aunt to start watching those gains, and he does just that.
The fact he's called Wade, like Wade Wilson, it says a lot, TBH. Now I looked that up, and apparently Wade Wilson is the real name of Deadpool.
Oh yeah, I knew that.
The next one, again quite telling, is just stalking.
Cool.
The fact I had now let me tell you, you did not tell me about this bit from Ready Player One.
I probably memory hold it,
and I haven't encountered it anywhere else. So I'm waiting for confirmation, really. But it says here, the fact I had to read an entire chapter of Wade talking about the sex he had with a doll and masturbating, and how it's like the coolest boy thing ever.
I do think this is true. Yeah.
No, what do you mean? How did you leave this out?
I think it's after the crushing. He's so horny for, because like when he probably started working out so much that he was like
he was horny.
Working up a horn, and I think he gets like a sex doll or something. I'd forgotten about that.
And how did Spielberg handle that on screen?
He sort of like bypassed it quite substantially.
It's like one frame, like in Fight Club, where
you can just see it in the background of a room. It's just like leaning out of a cupboard.
Yeah, and again, this person agrees with us. Too much detail, it felt like a slog. I was skimming entire pages of irrelevant detail about exactly what kind of model of haptic suit Wade wanted to buy that day.
That is true.
So yeah, I'm terribly disappointed you didn't tell me about that particularly egregious thing.
Well, it's probably for the best, really.
Yeah, I mean, in a way.
We can do a bonus episode on it, maybe.
I'd hate that.
Yeah,
I'd hate that.
I'll read it to you.
But then I found a review by Craig. Now, Craig left a 1-star review of Ready Player One in May 2013.
Wow, okay. He's an early adopter.
Exactly, and you're about to find out why. So I'm going to read Craig's review to you, and you just hop in whenever you want.
Okay.
I am the target audience for this book, on paper at least. I am a geek, and have been since before it was hip. My formative years were the 80s, and like any good geek, I grew up on The Usual for the time. I consumed Monty Python in vast abundance, listened to Rush and ELP, could quote movies with my friends like there's no tomorrow. I'm talking about the usual stuff, Wrath of Khan, Dune, The Lord of the Rings, brackets, books, all generations of the movie adaptations, audio tapes, radio dramatizations, Star Trek, brackets, all varieties, the A-Team, Twin Peaks, Blade Runner, etc. As well as some. Then
you can't put etc. after 35 things in a list.
And then I follow it with dash, as well as some, his own scare quotes, deep cuts like Neighbours, Mr. Frost.
Neighbours? As in the Australian sitcom? That's not geek food.
The Goodies, Akira, They Live,
These things are so different from each other.
The Reflecting Skin, and stuff like that. I get it.
Stuff like that's everything. That's all media.
All things and other things just like those. I get it. I grew up with Atari 2600s, C64s, and Intellivisions. Yes, I get the references. Please don't make me go on and prove it some more. I can, but it will get embarrassing for both of us, and you will quickly regret having challenged me.
I can't believe Ernest has given his own book 1 star.
Like, this is the thing, is that, like,
this just is Ernest.
Again, I hate to mention it, but it's on my brain because it's the only thing I've been watching for the last 3 weeks. But there's a bit in The Mentalist where, like, someone who knows Red John says to Patrick Jane, "I can't believe that you didn't become best friends the minute you shook hands." And it's like a big reveal that he's met him. Mm-hmm. But I get, like, that is how I feel here. Is like, how do you not like this book?
Well, I think I get it. No, I get it, because this is like the reading experience that this person had, like, must be so singular, because reading a book that was written by you but you didn't actually write it must be a singularly strange experience.
Yeah, well, and he doesn't like it for the most Ernest Cline reason possible.
Right.
I can sit in a room, this is why I decided to interject here. I can sit in a room with my childhood nerd buddies and go on and on about nerd movies, nerd
Why has he got
music.
Childhood nerd buddies?
No. It makes it sound like they're still children.
Yeah. You've got to leave them alone, mate.
When the local kids come round to my house and I tell them to whip those clothes off and come into the living room.
Play some in television.
Nerd music, nerd comedy, whatever, for hours. And we roar with laughter and delight.
What's nerd comedy? What is that?
We roar with laughter and delight. It's a tribal thing. It makes us feel connected in ways that our odd personalities cannot otherwise. But when someone stumbles into our group with some of the same quirks, influences, if you will, we freeze up, we size them up, and we feel kind of intruded upon.
I don't get it.
Who is this person treading upon our quotes, movies,
I thought he just said
trivia?
He liked all of these things.
Yeah, but only with his buddies.
Oh, so they have to be CNBs for them to...
Star Trek was only for these 5 people.
I see.
Why is he quoting The Cheese Shop?
How fucking dare he?
Our geek hackles are raised. We clam up. Screw this guy. He's a poser. Enter this book. It's that guy. It makes all the references we know all too well and thumps them around like it's being original geeky, like it understands what it means to be a nerd. Maybe it does. I don't know, and I guess it doesn't really matter whether it does or doesn't, because I'm not interested in its displays of nerdiness. I have my own. Give me a story to hang around it and drop your references tastefully and with purpose, and maybe we've got something. But this book doesn't. Every reference came across as obvious.
Fuck off.
It's an amazing thing to say. But more than that, it came across as forced.
Perceptive.
I wonder if we could just skip back 3 paragraphs to where he said,
where he forced
I watched Monty
TV
Python in vast abundance. It came across as forced. Like the author was given a random collection of nerd trivia and told to shoehorn as much of it into a book as possible. Or maybe he racked his brain for months. God, this is, I think, this is the least self-aware sentence in the whole thing. Uh-huh. Or maybe he racked his brain for months and collected every bit of trivia he could drain into a moleskin notebook with a space pen.
Wow.
Just drop some of your own references in.
Yeah.
As a person who gets every reference contained in the book without a nanosecond of thought, I was left wondering why I was bothering. What was the point? Especially when the author doesn't just make the reference. Oh no, he has to then beat you over the head with an explanation of each reference to add insult to injury. Maybe this Greek reference name-dropping works at the office cocktail parties. Here comes Billy. Man, he is so geeky and special. We love to just listen to him go on about Star Trek.
Wow,
but it doesn't do squat for me in book form. It just annoys me and makes me write mean book reviews on Goodreads. As for other aspects of the book, the writing is flat, the story is not challenging, the narrative is ridiculous, the world itself is extraordinarily derivative, the characters are beyond cardboard, and the action is borderline laughable. For me, it fails on every conceivable front. The audience I can see adoring this would be 10 to 15-year-old kids who've steeped themselves, brackets, for whatever reason, in a resurgence of retro 80s geek nostalgia and get a rush when they recognize a blatant reference to said culture. Blah. Whatever. As with most books that everyone loves, don't believe the hype. Ignore the endless blurbs lining the cover and choking the first few pages. Very few popular things are ever any good. Brackets.
Oh my god, that's so good.
Brackets. The Beatles being a notable exception.
Oh my god, that's even better.
And this book just proves it.
This book proves the thing I just said was only partially true. This is a horrible thing to listen to.
It's not good. It's not good, and it was not good, and specifically not good that I decided to just click on his little profile.
I don't know if I need that. I don't know if I need that in my life.
Now,
Craig's profile.
Now I'm afraid that you need just a little bit. You need just a little bit because
it's made me like Ready Player One more. I'm afraid, just reflexively.
Here's the thing is that I was expecting this to be about something about maybe some of his nerd habits and some of his like
watching Neighbours.
I thought foolishly that his little bio might be something about books,
right?
But no,
he doesn't even have a bio on Goodreads.
In mid 2011, I was a 42-year-old American man living in New England and looking to get back into martial arts.
Okay.
I had a brief stint in, and then there's a name of a Japanese place that I'm not going to ruin. As a teen, and always endeavoured to return to it one day. I'd always admired the discipline of martial arts, not to mention the physical fitness and self-defense skills achievable through dedicated and consistent training.
While I was studying the blade, you were making 80s references,
but to a level that you just cannot fathom. Because he says, now in my middle age, I figured it was either now or never. On and off, I'd researched various martial arts for years to see what would be the best fit for me, ultimately being drawn to Krav Maga for its brutal, no-frills practicality.
Yeah, now, I'm sure he needs that.
He goes on to say here, being one who prefers to learn by reading, I began thoroughly scouring the internet for blogs, articles, books,
Krav Maga blogs,
and other. Fuck? Oh, well, interesting that you laugh because there weren't many. So he made one, KravMagaJourney.com.
Oh, fuck.
But
is it up? I'm going to check.
It's up. Oh, it's up. Don't go because I've got a couple of little headlines from it that I don't want you to see. He said, I wanted a deeper dive than the wildly popular Krav Maga episode on the History Channel's episode of The Human Weapon, which I began to realize was the extent of what most people knew of this martial art, if they knew anything at all.
Normies.
I was more than a little frustrated by the lack of information to be found, particularly.
So this is on Goodreads.
Particularly information.
Why is he sharing this?
About what the style involved from a training standpoint. Consequently,
what about the books?
Right?
Tell me about Narnia.
But we're getting to why it's on Goodread in a second.
Oh, he's written a book.
Consequently, I started a blog about my experiences in Krav Maga, starting from my very first day, called Krav Maga Journey, brackets KravMagaJourney.com. Sure, you can find videos and books of master practitioners demonstrating Krav Maga techniques.
But did they have an Atari 2600?
But I sensed there was a definite gap that I could fill with my blog.
With boring old stupid men.
Yeah, and like... The thing that I found, so basically he started this blog and then he wrote a book called What to Expect When Starting in Krav Maga. And literally like he hadn't even reached like the top 3 belts of Krav Maga when he wrote this book.
That's fucking,
which is
that is the front on that.
It is honestly...
I'm going to learn Krav Maga to pummel this man into the ground.
Like, it's honestly so mad. He says he's got another guide coming up and a full-length book that he's going to do. And then, as if he hadn't said Krav Maga enough, the final line here is, you can reach me at KravMagaJourney@gmail.com, on Twitter at KravMagaJourney, or through my blog, KravMagaJourney.com.
Yeah.
So I went along, and I can't read very much from it because there is too much here.
Does he maintain that whole like Chuck Wendigo / Ernest?
Yes, 100%.
The whole time. Right?
Yeah.
So tiring.
I've just grabbed. Well, the first thing is that there's an article on there from September 2012 called "The Gatorade Myth," which is a good few hundred words long. right? And then as I kept scrolling, I found that there's an article from February 12th, 2013 that's called The Gatorade Myth Part 2, where he's managed to come up with more information about that.
5 months later.
The two things that I thought I would read from very briefly are, one's an article from October 3rd, 2015 called The Brain Cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, I think it possibly highlights how little this man maybe knows about Krav Maga, or like how little he's been paying attention. I think the most fundamental question you can ask in Krav Maga is, when do I use it? You've got the skills, you've sweated through training, so with a bit of luck, you ought to be able to defend yourself in most self-defense situations. When confronted with one of an infinite variety of attacks by countless types of attackers in an infinite variety of settings and situations, when do you use Krav Maga? I've read in many books and articles that you should first run. Don't be a hero. If you have the opportunity, use it. Run faster than you've ever run before and don't stop until you're a million miles from danger. Seems fair enough, right?
Yeah.
Then the next sentence is, the next choice if running is not an option should be to grab a weapon.
Okay,
a stick, chair, phone, can of Red Bull, whatever, and bash the attacker. Like,
bash? Is that a Krav Maga move?
Yeah. But like, no. You're supposed to do that before then. It's only after that you should use Krav Maga.
Okay. I didn't know. So you have to bash first, Krav later.
Run, bash,
bash, Krav.
Yeah.
Run, bash, Krav. It's like the new cha-cha slide.
Yeah. On the other hand, I've also heard more than once that when faced with an attack, you don't think, you immediately strike back. So
sometimes you don't have to write an article. It's just things you've heard. Like, sometimes it's fine to just have heard them. So
then I found an article that it was in the middle of like a run of articles with headlines that were, largely nonsense, but sort of seemed to
surprise me.
They seemed to sort of like fit with what I would, expect, thinking outside the box. Fear to freeze up and not speak, Krav Maga and fear, Kindle versus printed book poll, of course.
Oh yeah, that's
Black belt achieved. Black belt achieved was December 7th, 2014. Wow. The next post was December 28th, 2014. And the title of the article is A Brief Note About, and then in scare quotes, the Cosby quote.
Oh.
And it says, it deeply saddens me to see the allegations coming Bill Cosby's way about his alleged misconduct during the past several decades. If true, and it would certainly seem like at least a large part of the allegations are, given the sheer number of women coming forward to speak out against him, it is utterly appalling, unforgivable, and devastating to the many who grew up admiring the man, his humor, myself included. And so he goes on and explains a bit about that. And then he says, I bring this up on the blog because the first two editions of my book, What to Expect When Starting Krav Maga, included one of Bill Cosby's quotes.
Why?
Brackets, eerily, it was the section about fear. The quote.
Why is Cosby always quoting about fear?
The quote read, decide that you want it more than you are afraid of it. Disregarding the source of the quote and the reasons Cosby's in hot water for at the moment, I think it's a pretty good quote and appropriate to your mindset as you start and indeed continue your Krav Maga training. However, the source, ?
Not good.
Bill freaking Cosby.
Oh, yes. Slay him.
So you'll be pleased to know
Did he withdraw?
Craig's taken the quote out and he's replaced it with a different quote that he doesn't tell us, which will
Craig
be available. It will be available in all subsequent printed and digital editions.
Wow. I've never been more sure that I could beat a man to the ground with less effort. Yeah.
So that's powerful. It. So we'll probably get Craig on to chat in a later episode.
Amazing.
That'd be good. Yeah.
I look forward to it. Well, thanks for that powerful
you're very welcome.
Back to the book. We left off and they were talking about the new kind of parameters with the robes of Anorak. And the upshot is this. They've devised a way to detect if Anorak is nearby. Now, there's a lot of fudging here that I can detect already.
Sorry,
in the immediate vicinity.
Well, the fudging I've recognised is that it was only about 1 page ago that we found out there was any weakness to this.
Yeah, but fortunately, like one cool thing about this is like Faisal was just so on his stuff that he has already managed to prepare like high fantasy named prop MacGuffin for each member of our fun foursome These are bracelets of detection linked to the robes of Anorak, capital B and D, of course. Faisal continued. They will begin to glow bright red if the robes come within a 100-meter radius of your current location.
Okay, the thing that I enjoy most about Faisal having these is that clearly he's been watching what Wade's been up to, and his initial plan was to give them to all the other members of the board so they could find Wade.
Mr. Watts, I know you're here.
He turns around in Lohengrin's the O is a 0. Turns around in Lohengrin's bedroom, and there's just everyone stood behind, arms folded,
come on, don't fuck about. We've got shards to find.
You're fucking nicked.
That should prevent Anorak from sneaking up on you, he said. Which I can't imagine was the MO of a super genius AI.
Yeah.
Nice, I said, slipping my bracelet on. Thank the engineer for us, which I think is big, oh, cool. Yeah, no, I'm glad this happened. I was going to get around to making some of these myself.
Yeah, it's good. It's good that you can find, and just out of interest, when we're done, when we found Anorak, we probably won't need these anymore. So once we find him, everyone hand them back in.
We'll all melt them down. It'll be a whole, a ritual.
We'll put them in the museum or something. Yeah. It'll be a big thing.
Will you put the robes away? No. I better look after them. We don't want to fall into the wrong hands again.
That could be dangerous.
The other thing that is now happening in the chapter is Halliday or Anorak AI talks about the big red button in reference to this is why he has to go so hard in this plan, because he's afraid that they'd shut it all down. None of the other people knew about the big red button. It's just Wade, I think. So Wade now kind of recounts, only for the benefit of a reader who has forgotten the contents of 3 chapters earlier, what the big red button is, what it does. They do that very tedious thing of talking through all of the potential ramifications. The world would be thrown into chaos. The police wouldn't be able to beat everyone up all day. Our drones wouldn't work. It's literally the same thing we've heard so many times.
Does he tell them about his dream where he was hearing everyone go, bullshit?
No. Fuck, he doesn't. The salt and pepper thing. That doesn't come up, weirdly. And then that obscure Colin Hay song.
Yeah.
No, he just talks about how there'll be shipping delays, I'm afraid, and market crashes and states falling.
And also, would everyone not die then as well if he did that?
Yeah, it's unclear.
Sorry, not everyone would die. It would do a Lobo logout on everyone who is in there.
So you've got a good 1 in 10
would be ready.
It's the roll of a 10-sided die. Whether or not you live really 10-sided,
because most people will still not be in a good way.
Faisal, Artemis said, turning to face him. What would happen to all of Anorak's only hostages if we shut the Oasis down manually by taking all the servers offline one by one? Shoto chimed in. Or even take the whole internet down, just for a few seconds. What would happen? Would all the hostages wake up? And he does a really funny thing here, because obviously this to me has the vibe of as Ernest has come up with this plot, he's in a boat, in the Lachrymose Lake, where more and more leech holes are appearing, and he's we'll cover that one. And what will happen if we turn the internet off? Oh, and Faisal puts his hand to his ear for the space of 2 sentences and then goes, no, I'm afraid not.
No, I'm afraid not. And also the boys back home are saying, no need for any more questions.
Yeah, they're saying, the time for questions has passed. The time for answers has begun. Do with that what you will. They talk a bit more, and he puts a very fine point on the fact that Anorak could press the big red button and kill all the hostages himself if he wanted, I think. So he's got failsafe, even if they did get back in control of shit, he could just detonate everyone. Maybe that's the reason Anorak broke Sorrento out of prison, Artemis said, so that he could give his robes to Sorrento and order him to press the big red button. Because I think they consider that maybe Halliday designed the button so that you'd have to be a real person to press it. And I guess Sorrento, having faced death row, has lost his mind to the point that he's willing to kill 90% plus of the world. Yeah, Shoto said, but if Anorak did that, he'd be killing himself too, wouldn't he? Unless he was a backup, Faisal said. A standalone simulation we don't know about. Like that one TNG episode with Professor Moriarty, Shoto said. Ship in a bottle, H and Artemis said in unison. That's cool.
It's good.
Because one thing, when the chapters are getting this heavy, you're like, I wish we could reference some more stuff.
A reference that I could just grab hold of.
A bit of Star Trek here and there would be
ground
good.
Me in this chapter.
Yeah, and we got it. It's like the totems in Inception.
Yeah.
H is now speculating about what this Siren Soul could be. It's like, how could it be worth 500 million people's lives? Like, what the fuck could it be? Og apparently thought it's was.
It's 1 billion people.
It's 500 million and one guys, all in a bubba box, from where we were doing brain experiments on them for 20 years.
Don't ask them any questions about the past.
So Og, Artemis points out, well, clearly it must be important because like Og has gone along with this rather than just be like, no, I won't. So there must be like, it must be a big deal.
So is the idea then that Og probably knows what the prize is?
I think that's the implication, or perhaps it's been explained to him, and like having heard what it is, he's now, he's like, right, fine. Right. I mean, I have no choice but to do this. Yeah, because he clearly doesn't want to be finding all these siren shards.
No.
Because it's his wife, right? The siren.
Yeah, he doesn't want to remember. It would be a shame to like follow someone else's puzzle about how much they wanted to fuck your wife.
The ultimate puzzle cucking. Riddle me this, Batman. That'd be so funny.
One of the puzzles, like the final one, is like it's just you have to answer this one question, and it's like, how many times did Og make her come? And if you put any number other than 0, then you lose all your shots.
It instantly kills 500 million people. Now, there's one thing this book has not shied away from, and I guess now that I hear Craig or whoever that other person was recounting some of RP1, that other book didn't as well, was these big ethical questions like, what if your aunt got crushed so hard that you had to fuck a sex doll and become hench? And one of the ethical questions we now have is, should we tell everyone about this? Like, this is big news, right? This people gotta be knowing.
It's
like,
the
you've got to
biggest
come
news.
Clean.
It's the 4-minute warning, but for everyone.
News ever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on, Shoto said. Aren't we going to release some sort of statement to all the Oni users who are being held hostage to inform them of their situation? Faisal shook his head. I think that'd be an extraordinary bad idea, sir, he said. We don't want to create a global panic or admit any liability for this situation until we have no other choice. So good, so good.
Do you think, like, my instinct, because I don't like him, is to assume that like Ernest is actually just a big business guy. Like, he loves business.
He loves business,
and therefore that's why he's obsessed with the business angle of it. Or do you think that he is attempting here to make a sort of statement about what businesses be like in these situations?
I do assume it's that, but at some point that has to have just one consequence, right? Like, so far, because all that they've achieved is being the biggest and most intrinsic and integral company ever created by following these unethical practices. And he just comments on.
They are like unequivocally presented as being the good guys.
Yeah.
Which absolutely would imply that like he thinks that making sure you're not liable is like a good thing to do. That's a moral.
Yeah. You have a moral imperative to cover your back from a vis-a-vis
from a legal
law
standpoint.
So they have to be honest, a very quick discussion about this, much like, the last one where it was like, should we release 12 years later we released 1 billion Onis, and another year later 500 million people had died.
It's like an Always Sunny credits gag.
Yeah,
should we release the Oni? The gang does not the gang releases the Oni to everyone.
We told the Oni users the logout issue was due to a minor firmware bug. Apologise profusely for the temporary inconvenience.
Imagine if they said a minor in firmware bug, like, given the game away.
You'll like this because they do come clean. They apologise profusely for the inconvenience and announce that all teleportation fares would be waived until the problem was fixed. So you might be about to have your brain melted into the grave, but at least you don't have to pay to teleport.
You don't have to pay your bus home.
Yeah.
It'd be very funny if they were like, it's a minor firmware thing. We're looking into it. Also, if we don't solve it in the next 12 hours, you will all die.
We also and this is an interesting also, offered to deposit 1,000 credits in each owner user's Oasis account to help them, quote, make the most of this unfortunate situation. That's pretty nice.
make the most of their their next hours.
That's good though, right? Like that's kind of, like they've lost a lot of money. Giving everyone 1,000 credits, that's probably a significant amount of money.
Yeah, but they already had it all.
Yeah, that's true, but it's still, that's like value they could have got back to their shareholders, and that's the imperative of a company.
Right.
And that was in return. Well, it was in return for digitally signing an agreement stating they wouldn't sue us over the incident. Is all. So I guess it's like tit for tat.
And in the agreement that you signed, where you said you won't sue them over it, does it mention the whole death?
I think maybe it just says
incident,
unclarified
firmware
incident
problem.
Yeah.
There is no evil AI involved in this situation.
Luckily, though, Faisal told us this was just an extra precaution because, as mentioned, each time our users logged on, they were already clicking agree to an end-user license that clarified our headsets as experimental tech.
When he said this is just a final precaution, he meant like for the company legally.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Not like...
Did you think for the
I thought it was for the people's safety. No. It's just another precaution for the
They're
company.
Dead and or irrelevant.
Yeah, And indeed, like, they've got £1,000, but they've got £1,000.
But what value have they brought other than that? Like, it's kind of none, right?
Yeah, I mean, the least they could do is die for the company.
Yeah, or like come in a spaceship and then like have a floating embryo that Wade can do whatever he wants with. Right. So they sort that out, and having finally dealt with what was, in my and your view, the real problem of this kind of business liability absolution situation. Okay, Shoto said, now we can get to work. It must be a real weight off their shoulders, which it's nice to hear. Agreed, Artie said, as she stood up. But you're going to have to start looking for the second Shah without me. What? Everyone's like, what the fuck, Artie? What do you mean? Why? You're one of our great gunters. We can't gunt solo. My jet just reduced its airspeed to link up with a mid-air refueling tanker, so it's time to rock and roll. Which is that's a cool thing to say, I suppose.
That is cool.
I'm not going to let some 2-bit Gandalf wannabe take me hostage, she said.
Fucking hell. Can we just again say that, like, the woman gets the like super obvious reference. That Gandalf, he cannot help it.
I'm not going to let some wizard. Then she did what none of the rest of us could. She logged out of the Oasis and her avatar disappeared. So I think is the implication is she was about to jump out of the plane. It seems like
right.
Like, well, what else was it?
There's no point refueling if you're going to jump out.
True. That's true. So I guess she just why can't I refuel automatically? Plot reasons, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, weird.
What do you mean?
A few seconds later.
What do you mean? How can it not refuel automatically?
Why does she have to go oversee it?
Well, I assume she's going to like zoom off to somewhere, steer it off course.
Maybe.
Else, isn't she?
Maybe, but also crucially, no. Because what's actually going to happen is a few seconds later, so we haven't even had time to sort of take in a breath. Faisal gets 2 different calls from Samantha at the same time, a mobile call and a jet call from her plane. And basically it has the tenor of one of those like hostage videos because everything's like shaking around. She puts her arms into the harness of a parachute and does indeed jump out of the plane. She pulls on goggles and she's like, woohoo, like jumps out.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's pretty cool. And I can picture that. Who is it that plays Artemis in Ready Player One? Olivia Cook, I think. Right. And you can picture her. She's got that birthmark, remember?
But she's not. But she's still pretty.
Oh my god! Yeah,
that's what I heard anyway.
Yeah, that's what Wade taught us.
Yeah.
You can just picture that cool moment where she's like, she'd probably do one of those rock and roll symbols, you know,
maybe like does put her tongue out, like smile to camera,
and then jump out, and you're like, that's very cool. And then again, just a second later, her parachute unfurls, revealing the Artemis Foundation logo printed on top of it. The one where the adjacent letter T and number 3 in her name resembled an armored woman in profile drawing back on a futuristic hunting bow. When I read that, I had to sit there and think about it for so long. Like, you're drawing a T and you've got a 3. And I mean, kind of. It's a weird looking bow.
I'm not having it. I am not having it.
Another second passes, and this is weird. The plane that was in the sky suddenly like banks around and aims itself at Artemis. because Anorak is not happy about
that
this.
That would be such a funny
And he's
shot.
basically trying to ram. Oh shit! I shouted. He's going to ram her. We watched helplessly as the plane just did try and ram Artemis. What she does, she like pulls off her parachute a bit too early and lands. She touched down with a jolt that made every bone in my body ache, and her vid feed cut to black. Is she all right? I don't know. I'm trying to call her back, but she isn't answering. And then you think, oh, okay, well, the plane like swoops past because, like, I guess they're on a collision course and she just accelerated in a way that he hadn't calculated for. So she's safe.
I assume
she could have broken all our big crash. Bones. Exactly. He comes back around.
Yep.
Whee! Oh my God, Faisal said, he's going to crash into our landing site. By the time he'd finished saying it out loud, it was already happening. The vid feed cuts to black. The immediate area
cut to black.
It did it twice. The immediate area surrounding the crash site had been razed to nothing by the awesome force of the initial explosion. If Samantha or anyone else had been within that radius, they would have been incinerated. The real problem now is the fuel, which had been flung far beyond the blast zone like a botched napalm strike. 12 different fires now raged across the entire park. It looked like a war zone down there. Blah, blah, blah. It was impossible to see how many people had been engulfed by the sudden inferno. Anyone who had would be a charred corpse by now. Right. And I knew that any one of those burned bodies might belong to Samantha. End of chapter.
Oh, he does not.
He doesn't even tell us if Sammy's okay. Who, let's remember, he has fucked a few times.
Oh,
not many.
3 or 4. Not as many as he fucked that doll.
Single digit, baby. That's how Wade does it. Double for the doll, single for
the ladies.
That's his style.
Single for the skin. You've got to go to prison now.
I didn't come up with that idea. That was what I translated via Wade's lovely brain.
You have to go to jail.
Now, we like to have a theme for these episodes, like the lens through which we were exploring the book. And I think maybe this one is about liability or culpability.
Yeah, 100%.
Because it's a chapter in which, like, this is the aftermath of the biggest thing that's happened in the book so far. And if it isn't talking about why Wade isn't a cyber pervert for Robe of Anoraking his way around the private zones of half the citizenry of the Oni, then it's talking about why they're inured from any possible business attack that could ever, fairly take them down for putting half a billion people's lives at risk. And yet, one great thing about Wade, and this is where he becomes one of those like protagonists for the ages, like you can see him in the stars.
Figure.
Absolutely. Like he's the archetype of the warrior. Because where I think I would probably like succumb to a lot of that, I'd be like, fuck, I've fucked up. Like I've possibly killed more people in one act than anyone else has ever done. Wade, he gets over it. All it takes is a hot girl grabbing it. Well, a birthmarked hot girl grabbing his wrists, and the pummeling stops, and absolved is Wade of all.
Yeah, and I think that one of the other things is that like you probably wouldn't have thought to make everyone tick an agreement saying that they're not going to sue you for it.
That's why, he's shrewd. He's one of the great legal minds.
He's a businessman. He's read the art of the deal.
Boy. Yeah, for sure. And I love that for Wade. And I'm excited to find out what will happen in the next chapter, which, just in case anyone's keeping track of, the baffling convention is 0011. Now, is it binary? Like I was just thinking, is it saying that this is actually chapter 3? Like I don't know.
No, I don't think it is.
I can't see how this is chapter 11 in any sense, and I don't know why we're on level 5. I don't know.
No, I don't think any of that means anything.
Oh, maybe this is level 5, chapter 2. Then I don't know.
Who gives a fuck?
Look, we'll be finding out some more about Wade's big adventures in exactly 2 weeks from today, and it's going to be huge. You've heard that here first. Before then, though, there's a bunch of other things you could be doing.
It's true.
Kind of interfacing, if you will, with the content that we spew out of our digital gullets.
You're doing so well.
And Declan, why don't you illuminate some of those?
It's probably best that I do, so
Go for it.
Stop.
Don't forget the word Conti Clump. Everything okay?
No, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just, I was just choking something back.
Clump.
I was just choking something back. That's fine. So there's many, many ways you can get involved. If you want to hear more from this, just this show, if you don't give a fuck what we do outside of this show, then you can follow us at Big Bad Books. I mean, but each to their own. You know, maybe this is enough for you. Maybe once every 4 months is all you can handle.
Yeah. You're a man going your own way.
If, however, you would like more of the Shame City content, you can follow on Twitter at Shame City Gang, which is the kind of general hub for the things that are happening. You can also find us at shame.city/Discord, where there's a very fun Discord where there's lots of good people. Good people only. Stuff. That's one of the rules. It's the first rule. You have to agree.
Yeah.
Good person before they let you in. And that's kind of like, you'll get notifications. There's all sorts of chat. There's all sorts of wonderful stuff.
You can have like private conversations with people one-on-one and rest assured that we aren't like watching them with our robes of Anorak.
We will not be doing that.
We don't have that.
There's a little thing that goes off when we are. So you're fine. You're covered. But if you do find that we are doing that, we're not liable in any way.
Yeah, if we are doing it, join the
Discord. Like, you can't do us for it.
Well, actually, by listening to this show, we've already been in your house.
Yeah.
Bad luck.
You're kind of like, they're retconning in some kind of vampire law that if you listen to someone's podcast, you can go into that
counts as letting them in. Yeah, you crawl in through their speakers.
You can find us also. We do streaming. We stream games over at twitch.tv/shamecity or shame.city/twitch. It depends which way round you want to do it. Yeah. And that's normally flexible. Monday to Thursday, starting around 9, going to around sometime around 11. Every now and then there's like little extra bits here and there, but we're feeling generous.
Sometimes it goes later. It's crazy. Wow. Sometimes it starts later.
Yeah, often
get in the Discord or on the Twitter and you'll get notifications, or if you follow, you get notifications as well.
As we mentioned Shame.city. Yeah, that's the website. And as we mentioned earlier, there's patreon.com/shamecity, where we've just rebooted, rejigged, and kicked back into action the bonus content that's going out basically each week, even though we haven't formalized it. That's a show called CUPS. No one knows what it's about, and it's very good.
Yeah, really well received so far. I've been loving the feedback.
What if someone wanted to give feedback, Isaac? What could they do?
They could keep it to themselves, first of all. And if it were anything like Craig's feedback, that is. If it was something a little more positive, constructive, and less just a list of things you've seen and heard of, then by all means, although actually thinking about it, I would love someone to leave a review for the podcast in the style of Ready Player Ernest Prose.
Oh, God.
That would be really good. In fact, I'll go so far as to say, if anyone does that and it generates even more than a snort of appreciation from either of us, I will send you a prize of some kind, a digital prize.
Wow, he will.
So there you go. And to do that review, the 5-star review, to be specific, it's shame.city/book review.
Yep.
Is it an S? That's for you to find out.
I think it's book review.
Yeah, who knows? It might be both. It might be, it's one or the other, or both, or all three.
That's basically a little like online puzzle hunt for you.
It's a gun. Why don't you gunt yourself over to the reviews page?
Don't do that.
Gunt ahoy!
Use that verb. Do not use
fucking
that verb
gunts.
in relation to yourself or anyone else.
That's about it. We'll be back in 2 weeks with this show. TAS, our other show, That's a Shame, is out every other Sunday. Shame.city/TAS. You know where all the fucking stuff is. I have faith in your ability to find it all. Show notes has links as well. Good luck with those. I don't know where they go. It's random every week. This has been an episode of Big Bad Books. We're thrilled to be back. Not least of all, in fact, only because it means one chapter of Ready Player 2 closer to the fucking Robes of Anorak showdown that will no doubt end this beautiful work. And then at long last we can breathe a sigh of relief as Declan straps in for 5 to 7 years of pure Rand in season 2.
That's one of Isaac's bits that he does. It's not what will be happening.
It might do. Until next time, this has been Big Bad Books, the podcast where we read them so you don't have to. I've been Isaac, you've been...
I've been Declan.
See you in the EULA.
Keep gunting.